Trollord Games. Join the fray.
Help? Do we have sound now? Did that help? Sound? No sound? We got sound. All right, good deal. All right. Yeah, I had a Zoom meeting earlier, and I think Zoom, Chinese software, it overtook my computer and ran with it, or whatever. Hell, I don't know that crap. Kai Brightwing, do you have it now? I think we're getting sound. I think it's trickling, it's trickling through. Which is good. Man, I had the most wise thing I've ever said when I opened the screen, and now I can't remember what it was. I'm lying. I didn't say anything. How's it going, Johnny Nomad? Commander? All right, good deal. Chinese Couple says the man that loves it. Yeah. Yeah. Yep, there you go. Everybody's got their, their limit. I try to only buy stuff made United States, Canada, Mexico, Europe, what have you. But I'm having trouble finding any kind of house shoes. The shoes that I'm wearing now literally have holes in the bottom of them. If you walk in it, you're actually almost barefoot. I can't find any inexpensive ones at stateside. Tin canny but working. Quieter and not so clear. Alright, hold on. Let me see if I need to... Let me try... I'm gonna try something else. Let's see, that should be working. Can't be right, but absolutely. Okay, I think I see what's happening. Let's try that. Okay, is that any better? Can you hear that any better? I think I may have just killed the sound. Much better. Okay, yeah, I had it going through my speaker or some craziness. I didn't know there's a mic on the speaker, but maybe there is, maybe there isn't. All right, well, there you go. That's just because you're just across the river there, Grape Ape. You can hear me jibber jabber and stuff. It's been filtered through Chinese. Yeah, now it is, I'm sure. now that I've mentioned it, I'm on the watch list. I'm all done for now. Whoever's watching. I don't even know who's watching anymore. Lord knows it's not the Watchmen. Nobody's watching. Is that a Steve original painting there? Yeah, no. No. Steve can't draw. You should see. I should pull up some if I can find it. The maps I send poor Peter Bradley to draw are absolutely... Yeah, here we go. All right. So this... This is going to be the map from A12, The Paladin's Lament, and this is the opening before Aufstrag. So that's what I send Peter. So, I can hardly draw a rectangle. And the actual Aufstrag maps are just horrid. I don't know how he actually managed to draw anything out of there. How he drew anything off of those maps is utterly and totally beyond me. Yeah. There's a whole bunch of these somewhere. Davis's are actually worse. I try to keep my maps pretty simple. Davis does not. He keeps them relatively complex. So, but Peter's been working on this for about 15 years, 17 years, or whatever it is. So he's grown used to it. Just pour some Dr. Pepper on a page and have some. There you go. Well, what I actually started doing, if I wanted to write a little dungeon, I'd have Peter draw the dungeon first, and then I would write the dungeon. That way I didn't have to map anything. I'd say, hey, put this element here, or put this element in it, or whatever. Yeah. Yeah, I can barely use crayons, too. I could never stay in the lines. And not enough patience for that nonsense. Not enough patience for it. But maps aside, we are here for... What's wrong with my camera's driving me crazy? We are here for GM's Tricks of the Trade, number 85. I think someone mentioned water last week, and I thought, you know what? I need to write my 5 favorite uses of water. So let me close all this crap out. So I put that together. And we're going to dive into water in just a minute. Give another minute or so for people to wander in. Water is one of those things I think that it doesn't get used enough at the table. I saw some guy, now he was half joking, but he wasn't joking, but he was being funny about it. So he wasn't, being an ass or anything, but he was talking about how he never tracks rations, he never tracks waters, any of that stuff at his table. He just assumes they have food and they can eat. Which is pretty cool, but I think that I think you miss out a little bit when you start taking this stuff off of the table, because it adds an element of realism to it. Next week, 5 ways to use Dr. Pepper. There's only one way to use Dr. Pepper. 2 ways, actually. My wife put it on some kind of roast, pork tenderloin. She soaked pork tenderloin in Dr. Pepper. It's the best pork I've ever had. Water, water everywhere, not a drop of drink, from a favorite poem and an Iron Maiden song. There you go, crack ham. That's what it is. That's all that is crack ham. Maybe I should do, somewhere around here I've got 23 rules of Dr. Pepper. I should do 23 recipes, and crack ham will have to be one of it. Not the way I use it. There you go. All right, well, damn. Here we go. Had an extraordinarily productive day today, so this will be a nice way to round it off. Had a good meeting with the folks over at the Robert E. Howard business, and had a very productive meeting about what we can and cannot do in the upcoming Robert E. Howard Kickstarter we've got lined up for later this summer. We had planned it for an April. But we got to finish these other guys. They're too complicated, and there's too many things coming and going. So I want to get all these done, at least 3 of them minimally, and we're about there. Warden should be finished up by next week, and shipping the Monsters and Treasures of Air 5th edition is shipping. Well, we'll be shipping in a week or so, and then it's not the estate. It's Cabinet Enterprises. I think it's a business that owns the copyright to the vast majority, but not all, of the material that has come out before on Howard. So it's the estate owns some of it, then there's a foundation, and there's I don't even know if there's an estate left. I have no idea. I don't follow it. I just sign the contracts and move on. I figure everybody will do their due diligence in a fair and equal way, because I'm an idiot. But these guys have been fantastic to work with, I gotta tell you. They are absolutely fantastic to work with. Dr. Pepper deep fried chicken. There you go, Bifford. I'm not sure that's a good idea, but who knows? Who knows? I do like fried chicken. Fried chicken is delicious. All right, let's dive into this. Yes, the world is full of people that are fair, for the most part. But there's a few bad apples. Kind of wreck things for the rest of us. They get get a little too keyed up or whatever it is. You know, we do a lot of contract work here, but we still do a lot of handshakes here at TLG. We might be the last ones doing a lot of handshakes, but but we do a lot of handshakes. So it's the way I prefer business. And if it doesn't work, then that individual, and it hasn't worked a few times, and we've gotten, you know, stung in the butt a little bit. But if it doesn't work, then I don't ever work with that person or other people that work with them again. Just keep it that simple. Dive in. Yeah, there you go. We're gonna dive in right now. So let's talk about water. Today's GM's Tricks of the Trade, number 85. I'm just diving into 5 different ways, and probably my favorite ways of using water. I use it a lot, and I didn't even touch on the snow and ice side of things. Obviously, frozen water is a different ball game. It brings in a whole slew of environmental, you know, conditions and encounters that you can do, and just impact the players and all that other stuff. So with water, there's a couple of things I like to keep in mind when liquid water. A lot of things I try to keep in mind when I'm describing stuff and when I'm running a game. One, always you want to engage the players. 2, you want to have at least something per session, if not 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things per session that is relatable, that the characters can relate to. And obviously, and really the reason behind that is to, you know, they're already going to have to imagine dragons and, you know, all kinds of gold and treasure magic, whatever the hell it is. I couldn't think of another monster. A manticore, whatever. And that's beyond our pale, right? That's beyond our experience as well, for the most part. For most of us, I don't think we've encountered those things. But water, earth, dirt, stuff like that is definitely within our realm of experience. If nothing else, you've been to the pool or driven over a lake or, you know, a river or something. You've at least seen it. So water becomes, for me, this huge thing, a huge tool at the table to both ground the game, engage the players, and make something relatable all at once, while I can still create very descriptive text around something that people can conjure in their heads just before the dragon swoops in and breathes upon them and evaporates the water. Don't forget powdered water. Just add water. I think there's an industry. I remember when bottled water came out, and I was like, what kind of idiot would buy a bottle of water when you can just go to the tap and drink water from the tap? Well, I've bought bottled water before, so there you go. Don't forget. And we used to send soldiers out to find dehydrated water pills. There you go. I think one of the coolest things my dad showed me, obviously I've never been to the desert long enough to do this, but how to rig your helmet and your poncho, and get water even in the desert. It was pretty cool. Bad water, is that on the list? It's not on the list, but it is a cool thing to do. I don't often do that. I generally kind of move away from digestional and illnesses like that are kind of commonplace, you know, fevers, stuff like that, but not always. And bad water certainly would would visit that upon you with Girardi. What's the other one? There's 2 things you get from stale water. I can't remember what it is. The wife and kids are a different story, though. Wasting all my RPG money buying bottled water. I still refuse to buy bottled water. Can't be worse than all the water I accidentally drank playing in the creeks as a kid. You know, I only buy it when I absolutely have to have it. When I'm traveling, and I'm so thirsty, I just have to stop and get a bottle of water. But I don't keep bottled water here. I drink it out of a glass, just because it's crazy to me. Plus, I hate plastic, so anything to avoid that. The desert still with the poncho. Yeah, I don't know how to do that. It's some kind of, you hold it up in the morning and the wind comes through, and the moisture on the wind hits your poncho, goes down and soaks into your helmet. So you went on a 7-mile hike yesterday through the canyons outside of Sedona. Had a backpack and roughly 20 pounds of junk on me. I cannot believe how quickly I ran out of water and how much water I drank. It was like 95 degrees and my throat was caked with dust. Talk about hell. Yeah, and that's it. That's it. Now, that's not on the list either. I didn't put being without, but you absolutely have to have water. I remember when I was in the Army, I did a 12-mile road march. We had to finish it in 3 miles for air assault school, 3 hours in air assault school. Now, I didn't drink a lot of water. I drank about a solid canteen of it. But my buddy, Tom, he brought 2 canteens and a gallon bladder of water. He drank both of his canteens and the gallon and my second canteen. because it hit him hard. It hit him really hard. Dr. Pepper is the worst thing to drink if you're super hot. Do not drink Dr. Pepper if you're super hot. It will do nothing to quench your thirst. Absolutely nothing. I've been there many a time. All right, so let's dive into using water. So one of my favorite things to do is describing the morning dew, and we've talked about this before. You know, almost most, not all, but almost most environments, almost all environments have dew in the morning. It clings to the grass and equipment, bedrolls, people, weapons, all kinds of stuff. Anything on the ground level is really going to get a little bit of moisture on it. You can get more moisture up too in trees and what have you, but everything's just a little bit damp, and it's not so much damp that it inhibits play or is going to give them any minuses on checks or any of that stuff. It's really just a descriptive thing. It's a little cooler. There's a lot of dew on the ground. The dew's pooled up on your backpack. Your bedding is a little bit wet, and you can see the scintillating rise of the sunlight in the morning, as it peeks through the water droplets. And you can carry that onto spider webs. For those of you who are in country like Arkansas, there's in the morning out in pastures, there's thousands of spider webs, little bitty things, spun from blade to blade. And the dew clings to these things, and the sun catches, and they catch the light of the sun. It's just a really nice descriptive text that's both calm. Morning dew is one of my favorite phrases. It's just a fantastic phrase. It's just nice and calm and real, and it's just something that we've all, if not experienced firsthand, because a lot of people don't go camping, and people who live in cities don't get to experience dew clinging to grass and whatnot as frequently as some of us out in the hinterlands might, but it's something at least you're familiar with. Moisture, right? Just a little bit of moisture in the air, a little bit moisture on the ground. It definitely is something that your players can visualize, and it's not, like I said, it's nothing that you want to do that grounds them down. There's so much dew on the ground you can't move quick. It wouldn't be like that. It would be more like the dew is your cloak is brushing through the morning grass and has gotten damp a little bit. It weighs just a little bit more. It hangs just a little bit heavier on your shoulders after a few minutes. That morning dew really brings out the spider webs. Yeah, it does. I mean, it's really something cool when I don't get it here as much because I got mostly trees. But when you go up to where Davis is, up in the mountains, he's got pastures. And when you go out early in the morning, and the spider webs are just uncountable. There's just, spiders everywhere. You don't ever see the little bastards. They just spun webs and created a murderous havoc in the air all night. I suppose is when they're hunting. I guess they spend it in the evenings and capture their dinner that night. And it's like a pasture filled with just a giant slaughter fest going on while you're sleeping comfortably in your bed. Actually watched one. I got it on video. I should put it up. Maybe I'll put it on TikTok. I was sitting on the porch, and this spider had spun a pretty thick web there on the porch, and a wasp flew right into it and got hung. And you could see the wasp fighting valiantly. And a wasp is not a weak insect, so it was pretty rough on the web. But the more he spun, the harder it got. And eventually the spider came out real slowly, waited for the wasp to tire, and then got onto his back, and I assume began extracting fluids. I think that's what they do. I think they feed on the fluids. I think that's what they do. I get it a lot when LARPing. I'll bet you do. Yeah, if you get out, if you camp much, LARPing, getting up in the mornings, and if you get into like an environment like Arkansas, and I know like Colorado up in the mountains and stuff like that, the dew is actually, it's not inhibitive. I mean, it's not going to slow you down, but it's a lot of moisture in the air. You can actually get wet just walking through the grass, your socks, pants, and whatnot. Need more spiders in the world and less bugs. Yeah, try not to kill spiders. I like them. They eat mosquitoes, and here in Arkansas, mosquitoes are horrid. And though I will tell you, here in the window in my office, there's usually one or two spiders have spun a web, and they hanging out doing whatever spiders do. I swear to God, every 2 to 3 days, a cardinal will swoop up, eat that spider. He will hover right in that web, eat the spider out of the web, and go on wherever cardinals go. So there you go. Yeah, I imagine you've got, because in Canada, it's temperate, right? I mean, that's going to be, or is that, it's not tundra, no, it's going to be temperate. It's just a lot of moisture. The North American continent gets a huge amount of moisture. Hey, in a previous life, I was an ACW reenactor. Morning Dew is the bane of metal gear and leather work. And see, and that's it right there. All of that moisture gathering on your buckles, on your hilts, on your chainmail. It's not going to rust it immediately, but unless it's oil, it's going to impact it. Everything impacts it. And it's always there every morning. It's there. So it's this great descriptive thing. It's just absolutely a great descriptive thing to bring into the table that just helps ground everybody. That actually is an absolute perfect segue. Willie, you did it. You gave us perfect segue to trick of the trade number 2, which is soaked equipment. I'm going to dive into that real quick, but just for those of you who are just joining us, I'm Stephen Chenault, CEO of Trollord Games. This is GM's Tricks of the Trade number 85. Feel free to jump into the thread here and give us whatever we're talking about. Throw out your suggestions, comments, your experiences. We love to hear from everybody. And if you have not, please give us a follow. We surely do appreciate it. I've been making a conscious effort to relocate spiders in the house rather than kill them. Yeah, I'll do that some, especially if it's a jumping spider. Some I just outright and kill. We got wolf spiders here that are just pretty aggressive. They just get to die. But we don't get too many insects in the house. We've got the service thing that comes out, sprays everywhere. My shoes get soaked in the morning just by filling up the bird feeders. Rust Monster wet socks suck, and that's the thing. And that's one of the cool things that you bring it to the table. They get up in the morning, they cook their dinner, whatever, or their breakfast, and then they head off down the trail. And if it's like a wilderness trail, they're going to get wet, and it's there, and it's not, no minuses are going to come out of it, but it's just an uncomfortable thing, and it's just great descriptive text to give your players. In a coastal area, nobody needs salt. Nobody needs salt. Yeah, we lived out in Virginia, Norfolk, Virginia, and salt's not good. Salt's just, I even get irritated when they salt the roads here. For the ones in a blue moon, we have actual ice, which really just in Arkansas. Just wait 35 minutes, it'll go away. The sun will come up. But that leads us right into soaked equipment. Salt really does, and that's a whole different environmental condition. I mean, if you do travel in a region, if you're adventuring in a region where there's salt, it's going to eat at everything, and not immediately, of course, but it's there, and it's going to grind on stuff. It's going to get between things. It's just all over the place. It's like sand. Any of it, salt's infinitely worse than sand. But I don't know. This plays in. It plays into environmental conditions when you're running a game. Whatever they are, from water to ice to salt, whatever it is, it just brings a nice, realistic tone and a nice flavor to the game that'll help your players imagine it, and it'll help you kind of ground things, keeping things. You don't want to be. I hate the word realistic. I absolutely hate that when it comes to games, but realistic because it's something that everybody's experienced or minimally they've heard of, or in some way, some capacity. It's impacted their daily lives. So that helps ground the game when you're fighting the epic monsters and all that business. Man, I cannot talk today. I'm all over the place. But soaked equipment. So that's the second thing I love to do. I absolutely love to do this. And this goes right into from the dew in the morning, getting into your socks and soaking your socks and your pants and your cloaks, to raining. For those of you who have hiked or walked in the rain, very, very quickly your shirt and your pants get soaked. It clings. It becomes heavy. It actually can inhibit you. And then there's all of the added stuff that comes with it. The hair gets wet and clings to your face and to your forehead, and it's constantly in the way and difficult to get out of the way unless you pull it all back into a tail, and even then it starts getting a little bit heavier. There's rivulets of water running down your neck and into your shoulder, and that one or two dry spots that you had, water gets into it. So hiking and walking in the rain has this whole level of discomfort that I actually do when I bring it to the table. I actually do put minuses on folks. If they don't have some way of protecting themselves from the rain, they definitely can get a -1 on surprise rolls or initiatives or even combat rolls, just from exhaustion, being cold, and all of this wet gear and equipment. And on top of that, things can get ruined if they stay soaked for too long. Plus you weigh more because the water's, all of your cloth is filled with water, and I don't know how much it's probably going to increase your weight by a quarter, something like that. So it's just a weight that you're not used to. And even beyond that, One of the things I enjoy doing is it rains and they've got their sealskin cloaks on and they're pretty protected from it, or they cast that protection from elemental spells, which everyone seems to use in my game. But that doesn't protect you from the mud as the ground turns into just muck and you're stomping through it and the mud's clinging to your boots and your scabbard and your shield and your polearm and everything else as you stagger on through it. And then, of course, you can't find anywhere to sit that you're not in mud and just wet dirt. And that, too, will bring minuses to your combat rolls, initiatives, and all other stuff. So that, too, becomes a way of soaking your equipment just inadvertently. Let's see. If you hike too far with wet socks and boots, you'll start developing blisters. There's all kinds of bad things that happens to your feet if you do that. And it'll slow down, and it'll actually, unless you treat it, it will actually inhibit your ability to move. It slows your movement rate. All of that stuff. Water is, it's really important, but it's one of those things that if you just look at pictures of World War I and some of the stuff that those guys had to live through, and it's not, I know other wars have experienced it as well, but World War I's probably got it the worst because they stayed in this mud for months on end in the same spot, and it was just ground into nothing. Trench foot. If I remember correctly, wasn't it raining the day before the Battle of Agincourt? And the French had to fight the mud as much as they did the English, their frontline units bogging down in the mud, as I recall. Causing a giant wedge, and it just became this huge cluster that the English were able to take extraordinary advantage of with their longbows. So rain, whether it's falling or had just fallen, it can have a huge impact on the table and the game that you're playing. And I do it frequently. I probably do it too much. I know that it became a running joke in my game for a while. Mark would constantly mention it's raining again in Steve's world. It's always raining. I tend to do that a little bit too much. Soaking wet, scratchy wool uniform is a misery. Once you're soaked through, it's game over until you can dry out by a fire. And that's the thing, especially with the type of equipment that you're going to have in this type of environment. It's probably going to be wool or heavy cottons, and that stuff doesn't dry very quick, especially if you wear it, with the sun is beating down out and down, it's going to dry pretty quick, but the rest of it's not. And if you got to have your cloak on, it's just going to stay wet. And it does make you very uncomfortable. It's probably akin, maybe not as bad, maybe worse, to sleeping in your armor. If you're in plate mail, you can sort of sleep, maybe leaning up against a tree or something, but it's not that particularly comfortable, and it's going to leave you a bit sore, stiff, tired, as you didn't get a good rest. And wet clothing is the same way. And when you've soaked equipment through and through, bedrolls, clothing, all of it, it doesn't dry well. So you could be a day or so, 2 days, tramping around in damp equipment and damp clothing, if not downright wet clothing. It's very interesting. I really enjoy, as we've talked about in the stream before, I really enjoy doing environmental stuff for its realism, but also for its impact on the players. It's just yet another challenge that they got to weed their way through. It's one of those reasons that I hate that spell, protection from the elements. That spell drives me absolutely nuts because it robs me of one of my favorite things to do at the table. make the players suffer. It lowers your charisma. There you go. You just look like a rat that was drug out of the creek. That's all. Charisma down by 2 points. So that staggers us towards GM's Tricks of the Trade number 3, and my favorite uses of water. Now I don't do, as we've talked about before, I don't do dungeons often. That was the first spell used when I ran a game this week. Bastards. They learn very quickly, especially when those minuses start rolling in, and they don't think about it, when they're walking in the rain. Okay, you guys are so uncomfortable, you're going to get a -1 from your movement, or minus from your movement. Your movement is reduced by a third. And then when the combat begins, all right, everybody's so sore and miserable, you get a -1 from your initiatives just because your senses are dulled. It doesn't sound like much until they've lost initiative 2 or 3 times and missed, a swing 2 or 3 times. And then it starts getting frustrating. And they start paying more attention to it. And to be honest with you, it's difficult to find equipment that can keep, if you're in a torrential downpour, it's difficult to find equipment that will keep all of that water out. I've even got What the hell? Oh, it's hanging on the door there. Duster. I've even got a duster that's treated for water. And I've been out in absolutely downpouring rain. And after a while, even I'm not getting wet, but I'm getting damp. Everything's getting the moisture is just getting everywhere. And of course, it doesn't protect you from water that pools on your hat or on your shoulders, and then you shift in a certain way and the water suddenly is pouring down your shirt or in the back of your shirt or whatever it is. Water can be extraordinarily frustrating. And you can carry that same environmental conditions underground. I've been in a few floating discs over your head. Yeah, there you go. There you go. That's it. Grape Ape. Statler has solved the floating disc issue. Its real purpose is an umbrella. It's to keep the rain off of you. And if you still have your PC, you'll sweat. Yeah. And then it doesn't dry and it gets worse. It's just there's so many things that can happen with water. I just absolutely love it. It's just a great way of doing it. And you can carry it underground because it is very wet underground. Not all caves have moisture, but a lot do. There's a lot of... it creeps down for days and weeks and months on end as it rains above, and it soaks down to the earth, accumulating in caves and slowly soaking into walls and ceilings and pooling up on the floor. I've been splunking here in Arkansas quite a bit, and it's... you're almost always in water somehow. You'll crawl across a few, dry sections of rock, and then you're back into some, and not a lot, but it's enough to get your clothing wet, your knees, your hands, it's clean, you get mud on you and all this other stuff. So it's definitely there. And there's no reason if you're in an abandoned dungeon that water can't be accumulating on the walls and ceiling there, so there's this constant dampness in the air. It inhibits, thieves and rogues from sneaking and moving silently. It also, I think I talked about it in the trade, that it gives you another way to kind of make haunting noises, footfalls in water up down the corridor, that type of thing, so that people, so you can use the water to help build tension at the table. So underground moisture is as useful and it's not as common, obviously, as moisture on the planet, but clearly the oceans probably have more water than caves. But it definitely is there, and it's definitely something to use. This just in, Stephen loves water. Yeah. I use it a lot. Probably too much. And since it's all a little concave, it can collect the rainwater for drinking purposes later. Wait, see, floating disc. Yeah, there you go. So you've got an umbrella and a canteen. There you go. And hell, just put some fish in it. Let the fish swim around. A little bit of fish food. You got something, you can eat them later. Be a lot of concentrating on the floating disc, however. Sell some small traveling floating discs. Grape Apes floating discs. There you go. A magic item that is just basically an umbrella. Create water spill was also tops on the list in the game for the weekend. Oh, that's interesting. The run I'm running, they ran out of food. They went deep into the mountains and they didn't resupply their food stores. And when they got to the dungeon where they were their destination, they ran out of food. It was their last day. So their divine knight had to use, I think it was 3 points of mana every day to make food and water just to keep them fed. It was really kind of funny. Every army will have a floating disc guy that's in charge of the portable pond. It's a whole new task and job for the hedgerow wizard. Their only task is to follow the army. Hundreds of them carrying these floating discs of water. There you go. That's interesting, Statler. I wonder why was create water on the top of the list? I mean, were they in a desert environment, or did they not have flasks? Man, I'm all over the place today. I'm just staggering. Let's see. The floating disc pool. Can't stop yawning. What is with me? It's late in the week. A very productive day. These days like today are interesting because I worked on 5 different projects, 5 different files. Got 4 of them completed, so they're all small. Nothing big. But it doesn't let my mind ever kind of settle on one issue. Okay, this was done, and I got to do this that's completely different than this one, and then I got to do this that's completely different, which is good. It makes the day shoot by super fast. But I think it's worn me out. I think I need to go to sleep. I think I need to quit watching the X-Files late at night. I'm almost done with season 7. They just like to make sure they have all the basics covered to be self-sufficient. That's good though. I mean, that's a good party, because then all of the stuff that you throw at them, they're going to be prepped for. They're going to be ready for when it comes out, and it makes it more enjoyable to know that their prep actually serves a purpose when you're bringing this environment to the table. That's really cool. Steve had me working on one project today. There's more coming your way there, Knight. I hope we got that wrapped up. I haven't been to Discord, or have I? I can't remember. I don't think I went to Discord today. Talked to Chuck a little bit. He's taking care of a couple of things. Hopefully he's back in the running by tomorrow, but maybe not. He's an hour ahead of me. And I forget it's already 4:30. Good heavens. Chuck is taking care of the few things. Oh, perfect. Perfect. Yeah, I got to get on that server. So many little things that need to be done. I'm fixing to fall over and take a nap here in just a minute. I'm not sure what's wrong with me. So number 4, Jim's Tricks of the Trade. I can tell when my mind begins to wander. When I get sleepy, my mind just begins to wander off on its own. It's like, I'm done here. We're out. I'm going over here. You do what you got to do, but I'm out. And my brain's just wandering off. I think it's the discussion of water. I think that I need to go find a lake and sit by it and go to sleep. I miss seeing Chuck on these streams. Yeah, we're going to get him back on. I actually like having Chuck on. He's a good foil. He's a hell of an experienced dungeon master, GM, castle keeper, whatever we are. And he's good to have on stream. And he and I have a lot of interests similar, movies and all that crap. Let's see. So the next Jim's Tricks of Trade, number 4, ponds and lakes. So this I'm throwing out there because I forget it all the time. It's one of my favorite things to do, but I just forget it, and I really don't know why. There's always babbling brooks and tumbling streams and raging rivers, but in reality, there's lots of ponds and lots of lakes. They form, the ponds will form, and in 5, 6, 7, 8 years they'll go away. So these things are even almost mobile. But it's an environmental. I don't know what the word I'm looking for. It's part of the environment that your characters can definitely encounter, and there's a whole slew of things that you can do with them. Not only can it impede travel or force them to get creative with travel as they try to circumnavigate the lake or across it or whatever the hell they're trying to do, but it also offers all kinds of adventuring opportunities, monsters in the lake, monsters in the pond, monsters on the other side of the lake and pond. One of my absolute favorite series of books is the Pathfinder series by James Fenimore Cooper. He wrote Last of the Mohicans, which we're probably all fairly familiar with, but there's 5 in that series: the Deerslayer, the Pathfinder, Last of the Mohicans. Can't remember the other 2. But if you read those, now they're turn of the century, 1800s turn of the century. They're very slow. They're not, they're complete stories. They don't rush into action and everything. Lots of descriptions in Cooper's books. But water is everywhere. Obviously, they're in the New England region, and they're constantly in canoe battles. I think it's No, it's not Deerslayer. Is it Deerslayer or Deerstalker? It's Deerslayer. Ah, crap. Oh, my brain's fried. I'll say, what is that? The Pioneers. That's definitely one of them. The Leatherstocking Tales. Is the Leatherstocking Tales? Man, it has been too long since I've looked at all this stuff. I'm waiting for Deerslayer, is it? Okay, so that's one of them. I was thinking Deerstalker. Why am I thinking that? Oh, that's the Barbarian's ability in Castles and Crusades. So it's the Leatherstocking Tales. Yeah, so if you ever get a chance and you got time, pick up the books, read them. If for nothing else, they've got just amazing descriptions in them. And there's combats that are frequently not always, but frequently kind of built around lakes, and it gives a whole different idea of outdoor overland encounters. And I think I basically just robbed Cooper in describing in the GM's Tricks of the Trade today, where your characters have to get in some canoes, cross the lake to battle the orcs on the other side. And there's this very vivid picture that he painted it's in my head where I can't remember any of them. I can't remember the guy's name now. Good God, it's been too long since I read it. Anyways, where the Pathfinder goes up and attacks these Indians that are camped, these Native Americans that are camped on the bank of the river. Just really great stuff, good things, and it just brings home the whole idea behind lakes and ponds, and bring them to the table. Have them at the table. Don't forget them in your mad rush to do rivers and lakes, streams, pond, all that crap. Don't forget the good old lake and the good old pond, because they're everywhere. And they have their own whole environment. And ponds actually have a very interesting ecological history. So, get online and you can see the evolution of a pond as it forms and then slowly disappears. Very cool stuff. Well, that brings us to GM's Tricks of the Trade number 5, Natty Bumppo. And Hawkeye, that's what I was thinking. Why could I not think of Hawkeye? Good Lord. And Natty Bumppo is his actual name. Great books, but very, very slow. Slower even. I'm a huge Tolkien fan, but slower even Tolkien. But I would recommend the Cooper books. Good things. Good, and if nothing else, they're good for learning descriptive terminology and if you live a place where there's not a lot of forest, lakes, and ponds, you can definitely read these books and get a good idea of what they look like. He's really detailed in his descriptions. Really detailed. Leaves very vivid, for me, has left very, very memorable scenes. Ponds, giant toad. It's one of the first encounters I remember. I had been playing before, so it wasn't one of the first encounters, but I remember that encounter from T1 Village of Hamlet when those giant toads are outside the moat house. For those of you familiar with the adventure, it absolutely badass. Absolutely loved it. I didn't know what was going on. These giant toads were trying to eat my characters. I was like, what a toad? How big is this thing? It was awesome. I think my halfling died. In those days, Davis was running the game. This would be the 1970s, early 80s, I don't know, whatever. No, it would have been 70s. Anyways, Davis was running the game, and I was the only player, so I had 4 to 5 characters. And I played each one, as we wandered through it. All right, so this leads us up to my favorite thing to do, and there's so many good things about river crossings that I couldn't even remember them all when I was writing the GM's Tricks of the Trade, and they wax and wane in my tiny brain, but river crossings are absolutely spectacular. That's the second biggest toad I've ever seen. I did watch, I pulled this dog tick off of one of my dogs years and years ago. Huge thing, huge. And I was just about to just toss it out in the yard because it was bloated with blood, and I saw this frog sitting, or toad, I really don't know what it was. I really don't know the difference between the two. And sitting there in the grass, and I just threw the tick in front of the toad. And that dude, he turned his head, and he looked, and he looked, and he looked, and I figured out later what he was doing is he was sizing up whether he could swallow that dog tick or not. And tongue out, snatched that tick and swallowed it. It was so huge, it immediately got stuck in the toad's throat. It took him a good, 15, 20 seconds to swallow that thing. It was really funny. But presumably he had enough to eat for a few days, so he should have been good. I nearly TPK'd the party the first time I DM'd on toads or at the Moat House. The Moat House, if you haven't had a chance to look at the Village of Hamlet, go check it out. Fantastic, absolutely fantastic adventure. The rest of it, T2 through T4, it's cool stuff, it's great. But T1, the Village of Hamlet, is really this classic sandbox that gives you so much opportunity to run an adventure that it's mind-boggling. There's almost, I won't say limitless, but it's just amazing. And there's a river there and marshes, so you're good with the water too. But anyways, back to on the toads. Yeah. Those toads are cool, man. Cool and very dangerous. And it gives you kind of an idea of how grounded the game can be, because that encounter it's literally a toad. It's a giant toad. So it's not some epic whatever Lord of the Rings moment where you're fighting the Nazgul or throwing the ring into Mount Doom. It's just, it's not dragon slaying. It's not any of that. It's just very grounded. Do you have to do anything to convert 1E adventures to CNC? Not really. Castles and Crusades is easy enough that, and our stat blocks are easy enough. Everything is easy enough in the game that you can pretty much walk anything over. The only thing you're going to have to kind of make a mental leap for is the first edition material has negative armor classes. They have the descending ACs, whereas CNC has the ascending ACs. That's roughly it. Especially you take something like Village of Hamlet, and the armor classes are going to be comparable. Hit dice is comparable. Everything's other than the descending AC. Everything's pretty much comparable. I used B1 not long ago, T1, and another one. What's the marshes? Something in the marshes. I can't remember. Man, my brain doesn't work anymore. But it's Statler. It's easy as pie. I would just grab that village and run with it. Just a damn huge toad trying to eat. Yeah, Salt Marsh. Yes, that one. I love that adventure. Absolutely love that adventure. So rivers give you this fantastic opportunity to challenge your players. They're going to make a lot of checks to cross the river, whether they're swimming or trying to build a boat or trying to make a makeshift bridge, whatever it is. You get lots of checks going on and lots of opportunities that the check is not something that kills them. If you're on a 60-foot cliff and you fail your climb check, you fall 60 feet, you're going to die. But if you're swimming a 60-foot river and you fail your swim check, you just go down the river. If the GM can decide whatever they want. You might die, but you could just go down the river 20, 30 feet, make another check, make another check, make another check. You can decide as the GM when those checks become fatal or damaging, and I like that part of the thing. The river gives me a control over the environmental danger and encounter that other environments don't give me. Especially climbing oceans. I've meant to point that out with lakes and ponds. You do a sea adventure, you fall overboard, you're going to die. You do, if you're in armor, if you do a lake adventure, you might not. You might be able to swim to shore before you sink below or whatever it is. In the ocean, if the boat keeps going, you're out. That's good to know. I'll probably try using... Yeah, it's really easy, Sadler. It's crazy easy. To be honest with you, my guess would be all versions of Dungeons & Dragons are easy to convert to Castles and Crusades. I did not play 4th edition. I did not play 2nd edition. I played 3rd edition once, but I published it, so I'm kind of vaguely familiar with the thing. And I haven't played 5th edition yet, but my guess is a lot of it would carry over pretty easy. 1E, probably the easiest. When we created Castles and Crusades, part of our whole thing was making a game that Gary Gygax could write his Castle Zaggig stuff for. So there definitely was and had to be a similarity to 1E because that's the game he liked the most. Of the D&D games. But at any rate, so rivers offer you just a mountain of environmental challenges all over the place. It's going to make your players get real creative as they try to get across the river. Spell use, environmental use, cutting down trees, rope bridges, all of this stuff. It's almost the picture perfect environmental condition that gives your players the opportunity to push the envelope, which is really cool. Lots of checks, which is fantastic because you're actually playing. If they're rolling dice, then they're actively playing as opposed to role playing or whatever, which is it's definitely actively playing, but it's they're rolling the dice and the chances of failure and whatnot are there. So rivers are fantastic. And then on top of that, absolutely on top of that, if you're running new players in a game, it is a fantastic way to introduce your players to that game's mechanics, whether they have skills or feats or traits or whatever it is, or in Castles and Crusades, it's just attribute checks. It's a great way to have them roll a bunch of dice and learn the mechanics because, like I said, they can swim the river, they fail their check, we'll make another check, and after they've made 5 or 6 checks, they're kind of understanding now how the check system works, how that trait system works, skill system, or whatever the hell it is that you're using works. So rivers just really... They just offer the GM so much material, and that doesn't even mention the idea of bridges and monsters that could be in the water. There's just a plethora of stuff that you can do with rivers that can really enhance the game. And I think that I was kind of a latecomer to rivers, but I've always used them, but they've really become a central part of not every game, but that I use them a lot. And on top of all of that, You take a place like Europe or the United States, or probably even, not probably, but definitely China, Vietnam, you know, the whole temperate part of the planet. And there's rivers, hell, in the Amazon too. There's rivers, Congo, everywhere. There's rivers everywhere, big, small, fast, slow. There's rivers all over the place. So crossing them is something that you're going to be doing, you know, every 4 or 5 days, because you're going to stumble upon another river. Let's see, I missed some comments here. Blah, blah, blah. Can confirm basic OE, 1E and 2E are trivial. To convert 3E and 5E, you need to be mindful of hit point differences and power creep. 4E can be used for inspiration, but would just use CNC monsters. But have used all editions of D&D to run on the fly conversions while running CNC. Oh, that's very cool. Well, that's cool, Pawn Dream. That's a nice little capsule. Because the game really, Castles and Crusades, is really kind of tailored so that you can, you know, hodgepodge it up. You can go into the game and kind of fix it the way you want to play it. And borrow elements, and that's part of our design philosophy, which helps into everything that, you know, any of these editions that you're bringing over. There's a river in the American West that was so hard to float or cross that it remained mostly unexplored for a long time. Grand Canyon ain't an easy thing to deal with. Yeah, I mean, if you want to, yeah, you take rivers like that, and you can get all kinds of. And see, that's a fantastic adventuring idea right there. You come across this river, and it's so difficult to navigate. You can tell that the wilderness is pristine, and as the characters go into it, they're going into virgin timberland, virgin wilderness, and it's all new stuff for everybody, and it's lots and lots of opportunities. Waterfalls always can put something hidden behind them. Waterfalls are fantastic. They're actually great. They should really. This list could go on for a while. Waterfalls are great, not only for something behind them, but for descriptive text. For whatever reason, us as a species, we like falling water. I don't know, falling anything. I think maybe it's a male thing. I don't know. But waterfalls conjure that untamed, that concept of the untamed wilderness really, really well. Because that's, at the end of the day, it's just an uncontrolled torrent of water falling. It's not like with the rain. It's not like a river, you know, that might slow or whatever. And so waterfalls are just awesome to use, and they're just great for descriptive stuff. If you use 3E, 5E monsters on the fly, they will be much tougher, more hit points, just element the bonus hit points and that they get. There you go. Yeah, I know there's some kind of nuance between 5E and CNC. You know, we do enough conversions, and I know that this is kind of an issue that has to be looked at. The problem is when I'm running, I tend to just drop stuff and change stuff so very, very quickly that I don't notice it myself. So this is why Jason Bay and them were in charge of the actual conversions of it. If you're interested in lots of editions of monsters, I'm doing a monster talk after TLG finishes up. Eat to Surf, you need to put your, I don't know if you can, I'll get a hold of Tim, put your link up, if you can, for your Twitch channel. And maybe we can raid you. Yeah, I can do that. You know, actually, it's about time to wind down. Are you starting at 5? We can jibber jabber here and then raid you. Eat to Surf if that works. That would be very cool. Let's see. We're gonna. Why are people calling me? What's going on? Hi guys. Sorry I missed things. Working for a living is fun. We've really been talking about moving this discussion from 4:30 Central to 5:30 Central, or maybe we really need to do it in the evenings because a lot of people work, and I'm certain it's hurting people's ability to come join us here as it's winding down people's work day and their you know, all of the goobly-goop that comes with that. So yeah, I'm waiting on my partner. My pre-show is rolling, and I'll be right up. All right, so do we need to wait till 5 to raid, or are we good to just do it now? Gotta go. I've got a Ghost Walk rehearsal tonight. Great show. Thanks, Vic. Thanks for coming by, and good luck on your evening's endeavors. And we've just let everybody know if you haven't given us a follow, and we'll be back on Tuesdays at 4 o'clock, and again on Thursdays for another GM Tricks of the Trade, and there's other shows in the train. Check the schedule. I can't ever remember anything. All right, so we are... Yeah, I'm about to pass out. I don't know what my problem is. What is it again? Let's see. It's raid. All right, there we go. Tim took care of it. All right, so we got a raid coming. Thank you all for showing up. Sure appreciated it. Love talking about water, and we will see you next week. I'm hitting the raid now. Y'all have a wonderful weekend. All right, wait, I'm still streaming.